We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you love everything in college football, the game we love, please subscribe to our channel. Smash that like button. Share the video with your family and your friends, your significant other, your psychiatrist, your priest, your cat, your dog. Share the video. Welcome in. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. We have got a stacked show tonight. I'm still fighting the cold. I still got a cold, but me and the little general, the one who rules with an iron fist, the moderator of the show, we looked at each other. We looked at the news coming out today and we said, we got to do it. We got to go live. Pete Thamel, ESPN, odds-on favorite. The two schools in the Pac-12, odds-on favorite to jump first to the Big 12. Colorado Buffaloes and Arizona Wildcats. And there's a special meeting tomorrow, a special board meeting at the University of Colorado talking about Pac-12. We'll get into that. Pac-12 athletics, I should say. That's what it says in the agenda. We'll get into that. We're going to get into Pete Thamel's article. We're going to break it down. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. If you're new to the channel, here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, we are the rebel outpost of all of college football YouTube. I am not here to take sides. I'm here to give you the straight info that we receive here at Peek Around the Corner, and we put out what other people report as well. I can tell you this. Saturday night, you were there when we did a live show. By the way, it's our biggest live show ever. Thank you so much for all your support to this young channel. I appreciate you all that come on aboard. PATC community is the best. It's elite. Thank you so much. But you were there. We talked about it Saturday night. We said that there's no deal yet. There's no offer. There's no numbers in front of the Pac-12 presidents. And it needs to be done this week. Now we are into this week. It's Monday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday are very pivotal days in the future of the Pac-12. But we told you on Saturday, it's still true today. All these reports that the Pac-12 has been offered, and the Pac-12 presidents have seen deals of $26 million, $28 million per school per year, $22 million, $25 million. The deal's done, but now they're working on the grant of rights. Not true. The comprehensive package between 2 or 3 different media partners that George Kliavkoff could combine together to present to the Pac-12 presidents, maybe 2 offers, one that leans heavily on the monetary angle of it, maybe one that leans a little bit more to the visibility angle of it, but whatever. No comprehensive offer that combines it all has been shown to the Pac-12 presidents as of this morning. Has things changed this evening? I don't know. But that, I cannot emphasize you that. I cannot drill down more than that because look, Pete Thamel, we're going to go right into this article. He says it. Pac-12 presidents need clarity. They need the numbers. Arizona State, Arizona need the numbers. We got an Arizona State letter number 5. I'm going to read to you the entire letter. It's not that long. It's not all that juicy, but it gives some more backdrop. For those new to the channel, we have an Arizona State money perch person who's been giving us the straight dope throughout this whole thing, and he has been nails through it all. January 31st, he told us that Arizona State showed their displeasure in the Pac-12 meeting the day before. They were frustrated at the process. Ray Anderson came out a couple weeks later and basically said those words. Arizona State says they can't move unless Arizona moves first. Well, Pete Thamel article. So I'm going to give you and then we did Arizona State Money Perch letter 1. We went through all that. It was an emotional letter. That was a couple weeks ago. 2 and 3 we didn't even bring up onto the show. Letter number 4 was Saturday night, was Thursday night. We brought it up Saturday. We just brought up a few sentences saying that Arizona State needed to see the numbers this week. So does Arizona, of course. They need to see the numbers this week. And he went on to say, we talked about it Saturday night, the Pac-12 conference, a deal's not going to be done this week. The conference isn't going to be saved this week. But if they can get the numbers this week, if something can be presented to them, a comprehensive package media deal, then they can hash it out for the next couple weeks and get the deal done in early April. That is still the possibility. It's still there, but they need to see the deal. They need to see the offer. The second part of that is if they don't see an offer, if they don't see a comprehensive offer this week, which is really tomorrow and Wednesday, then this thing could implode before the end of the month. At the very least, we're going to see leaks rapidly coming out. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this week, if the numbers don't present themselves or if the numbers and the structure of the deal is so poor, okay? So the conference can't be saved this week, but it can help its positioning. But George Kliavkoff has to present something this week. Before we get on to Pete Thamel's article, I want to show you a little clip from 365 Sports with Mitch Sherman for The Athletic. Before we get on to the agenda, University of Colorado's Board of Regents agenda for tomorrow. We have so much to get through, but before we go to all that, I have to thank our sponsor for this show, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. Welcome to Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. We invite you to discover the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. Clean, hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about, and we rave about it constantly here in the Pflugar family up here in Minnesota, where we need hot coffee to get us through this winter. The taste that people rave about is achieved by the roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. There's a link in the description box below the video. If you want to give this most beautiful coffee, most smooth coffee, want to give it a try, go to the link in the description box below the video. And if you want to support this channel, when you order the coffee, put PATC in the comments section. We are so fortunate to have Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters as our sponsor of Peek Around the Corner. We love the relationship. Thank you so very much. Okay, let's get to Pete Thamel's article. We're going to break it down, and we'll get to your comments. We'll get to your phone calls. We're going to be here a while. The number is 763-260-1333. The phone lines are not open yet. Give it time, but we got to go through this article. ESPN Plus, Pete Thamel. Don't trust anyone. The latest on the Pac-12 drama as decisions draw near. It was released at 12:15 Central Time. As the Pac-12 men's basketball tournament begins in Las Vegas this week, there's hope throughout the league that Commissioner George Kliavkoff will be able to offer school leaders some clarity on the finances of the upcoming television deal. Again, all these reports that there's an offer here, there's the offer there, presidents are seeing this, presidents are seeing that, 28 million, 32 million per school, 35 million per school, 25 million per school. It's just Amazon and ESPN. All that reporting doesn't mount to anything because we've been telling you for weeks here at Peek Around the Corner, there's no real offer that has been presented to the Pac-12 presidents, and I think they're going to see one tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay? The Pac-12 presidents want clarity on the finances of the upcoming television deal. Back to the article. There will not be an in-person board meeting in Vegas, but there will be another update to the 10 presidents and chancellors who compromised the Pac-12's board. Here at Peek Around the Corner, we do not think this is the big issue. There will not be an in-person board meeting in Vegas. I don't think that means very much. Negative or positive. They just want to see the numbers. They want to see the comprehensive media package combined with 2 to 3 media companies. Here it is. This is the offer. And let me point out something real clear. Nobody expects this offer to improve as time goes on. So, It's this week, ladies and gentlemen. It's this week. The numbers, the structure of the deal will present itself, and that will tell the story. So there not being an in-person board meeting, there doesn't need to be, not all the presidents need to see each other again today or tomorrow or Wednesday. They just need to see the offer. No final deal is expected. They haven't even hashed it out yet. They haven't even seen it yet. No final deal is expected. It's not going to happen. Now, that's not necessarily bad news for the Pac-12. No final deal is expected because they haven't even gotten the offer yet. You understand? Okay. But rather, the latest details on the final stages of the league's meeting negotiations will be presented. In other words, what we've been talking about for weeks, what we talked about on Saturday night, they're finally going to get the numbers, the structure. We at Peek Around the Corner, we do not know what that number is. But all those other reports, well, they haven't been all that accurate. Let's put it that way. League members are longing for financial clarity. In other words, they haven't seen anything. Just like we've talked about Saturday night and all the previous weeks. League members are longing for financial clarity as the finances of the deal will ultimately determine the fate of the league. It's all going to come down to a head in the next few weeks, an industry source said. He's either going to give them a deal or he's not. George Kliavkoff is either going to present a deal that can be hashed out, that can be acceptable, that can thread the needle to get all 10 board members, all 10 universities on board to sign the media deal. Either he's going to give them that deal or he's not. But again, they haven't seen jack squat. Now maybe that's changed tonight, but as of this morning, we can tell you nobody has seen jack squat. Okay? For schools in the Pac-12, there's still optimism despite the uncertainty about the league gaining some kind of short-term bridge deal to recalibrate. For the generally risk-averse presidents making these decisions, status quo was always the easiest decision. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But now, short-term bridge. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, 3-year deal, 4-year deal, 5-year deal max. Just a short deal to get everybody on board to hopefully get the Pac-12 to the next media deal, have it survive this. Knowing that Oregon and Washington are not going to sign a traditional grant of rights that has any teeth to it. And we talked about that all the way back to episode 52. Episode 52 months ago. And Peek Around the Corner, we got raked over the coals when we said that. When the Oregon Money Perch told us that we're not signing anything that has teeth to it, and neither will Washington, we got raked over the coals. Well, let me tell you something. A 3-4 year deal is not that, the grant of rights, well, it's just not going to have any teeth to it. That is the pathway, possibly, that George Kliavkoff can thread the needle to get everybody from Oregon and Washington on board, from Washington State to Oregon State on board, and everybody in between. We continue with the article. Can Kliavkoff pull off a financially viable television deal with a palatable balance of streaming and linear to keep the league afloat? A source told ESPN on Sunday that a streaming-only media deal with no presence on traditional television is not an option for the league. It's just not. That's why when that Apple TV info dropped from Brett McMurphy, that just showed you, well, we won't get into that. But an only streaming option, that's not going to work. A heavily streaming option probably isn't going to work. Back to the article. Around the Pac-12 this week is viewed as a pivotal one. This week, they need to see the numbers. Not to say the deal's going to get done this week. Nobody expects that. It's impossible. But let's see the numbers. And if we get some leaks of positivity, then the Pac-12 is on their way to saving this conference as it is for the next 4 or 5 years. Around the Pac-12 this week is viewed as pivotal one. While there's no chance at a final deal coming, a continued lack of clarity, again, it's almost like I wrote this article, and nope, me and Pete Thamel are not the same person. I weigh about 250 pounds more than he does, and his IQ is 100 points higher than mine. But this is what we've been saying. While there's no chance at a final deal coming, a continued lack of clarity could be consequential as many league schools remain on edge about the future. Does more ambiguity lead to some putting up their periscopes to seek out more stable ground? Absolutely. No doubt about it. It's already happening. That's the real cloak and dagger. That's the real cloak and dagger. Not what's being put out there on Twitter, on message boards, people accusing each other of being paid off by each other's conferences. That has nothing to do with, that's not going to influence anything what these presidents are going through right now. It's the numbers. That's what's going to determine it. The league, back to the article, the league has reached a point where schools looking around and engaging with other conferences has gone from an option to an expectation. It's happening. It is. There's intermediaries between people representing the conference and the schools. We're way past debating if this is happening or not. It's happening, it's happening, it's happening. And it's happening multiple different ways. And it's happening within the money perch. And that's why the money perch has been, well, from our perspective, has been so accurate over the last 10 years. And that's where we get our information. Back to the article. According to sources, there has been at least minimal contact between the Big 12 and the Four Corners schools, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. The contact has emerged to varying degrees and via various methods, cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger. Drink responsible in the chat room, PATC community, cloak and dagger, depending on the school. But there's a bottom line pragmatism to the conversation. You can't blame anyone for looking for options and what's out there, an industry source said. Even with the deal, questions linger. Even if you get this deal done, there's going to be questions lingering. If the Pac-12 can figure out a short-term tourniquet contract, will both Oregon and Washington agree to a traditional grant of rights that comes with it? There's a temporary air around the league, with a short deal seemingly building a bridge for schools to retest their market value in 3 to 4 years. So, even if you get the deal done, even if you get that bridge done to 3 or 4 years out for the Pac-12 to recalibrate themselves, to reset themselves in the marketplace, so will the individual schools hopefully reset themselves for an invite to a more secure landing spot. The lack of permanence, back to the article, the lack of permanence in the Pac-12 comes from the fact that Oregon and Washington have national championships aspirations that don't line up with even the Pac-12's most optimistic television windfall, as there's a likelihood the league is $30 million annually per team behind those in the SEC and the Big Ten. I want to, again, I know I'm taking some time here, but the lack of permanence in the Pac-12 comes from the fact that Oregon and Washington have national championship aspirations that don't line up even with the Pac-12's most optimistic television windfall. Again, I'm only going to put this out here one more time. People say, why would Oregon and Washington want to leave to the Big Ten if they would have a better chance of winning the Pac-12 championship if they stayed in the Pac-12? I'm telling you, the university presidents, the athletic directors do not think in that manner. Texas and Oklahoma left to the SEC, which is going to be many times more difficult to win that conference than if they stayed in the Big 12. But they'll leave it to the SEC. USC is going to have a harder time winning the Big 10 if they would have stayed in the Pac-12, but they're leaving them and UCLA to the Big 10. It's about gaining as much exposure and as much revenue as you can for the front porch of your university to help all of your student athletes, not just the ones that are in your money-making sponsored teams, but your other ones as well, your other sports as well, your non-revenue sports. It's about gaining and attracting students. It's about giving your student athletes the biggest, best opportunities available to shine a light on your university. That's why Oregon and Washington are going to keep swinging away. I've seen a lot of really smart people on Twitter talking about how, no, Oregon, Washington, they just rather stay where they are because it's easier to win. That's, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're entering the gold rush of 2026. Things are going to change once again. And each school is going to do what's in their best interest to make sure that they are in the room, that they have a voice in the future of college football and of college sports. Back to the article. Conference realignment history has taught us. Okay, now listen up to this. Conference realignment history has taught us that the schools with the most options nearly always have the most sway within the league, making them both necessary linchpins for the leagues and dangerous business partners. There's something I've learned about membership. Don't trust anyone, former Big East commissioner. Everyone is going to do what they think is in their best interest. Everyone's going to do what they think they have to do to position their schools. That's the world of college athletics have been living in for a long time. We just discussed that. If there's nothing available imminently for Oregon and Washington with the Big Ten, it's hard to imagine the gravitational pull from that league and its television contract not emerging prior to the Big Ten's next trip to the bargaining table after 2029 football seasons. Conferences are going to keep growing. More consolidation is on the way. We talked about that in episode number 1 of Peek Around the Corner back in August 10th, 2022. There are only so many strong properties left on the college sports monopoly board. Notre Dame is Boardwalk, and then there's a long drop from there. At some point, knowing it doesn't make physical sense for Oregon and Washington to be long-term committed, do other Pac-12 schools seek to chart their own course? Colorado and Arizona are the odds-on candidates to jump first to the Big 12, which remains open for business. After all, there's only so much nobility sticking on a ship that nearly everyone thinks will sink in 60 months. So if it doesn't sink now, most people think it's going to sink within the next 5 years. And a lot of that has to do with most people believe that Oregon and Washington will at some point become Big Ten members. When I see Colorado and Arizona are the odds-on candidates to jump first, remember what our Arizona State Money Perch guy has been saying. Arizona State can't do anything first. Arizona's going to have to do it first for the Arizona schools But when you see Arizona State will be following close along right in back of Arizona. Right? Back to the article. Colorado has Big 12 roots. A football coach who resonates in the Dallas Metroplex in Deion Sanders. And a football product America is curious about for the first time in a generation. Don't underestimate Arizona's basketball first mindset. The Big 12 is the country's undisputed top league, no question. And there are also years of administrative eminence towards the Pac-12 dating back to former Commissioner Larry Scott's tenure. Former Arizona Athletic Director Greg Bryan first guessed Scott's missteps that set the league off course nearly a decade ago. Attempting to dig out of the crater, Kliavkoff has been working cloaked in secrecy. Cloaked. Pete Thamel is using my word, kind of. Cloaked in secrecy. The information vacuum. Remember we talked about that vacuum? It's going to be filled by somebody. If not Kliavkoff, it's going to be filled by somebody. Attempting to dig out of that crater, Kliavkoff has been working cloaked in secrecy. The information vacuum and uncertainty has the schools with options checking them and checking them again. What's worse for Oregon and Washington leaders? Being bad partners to those in the Pac-12 or being physically irresponsible to their own athletic departments? What's the best business move for Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona State? Is it hoping things work out or exploring contingencies until there's hard numbers tied to the Pac-12's future? Again, they haven't seen any hard numbers. They haven't seen an official comprehensive media package offer from George Kliavkoff. And I'm going to tell you, it has to happen this week. And here we go. Here's another point we've been talking about for months at Peek Around the Corner. We talked about it during the USC saga during the spring when we broke the news that USC called the Big Ten to get into the Big Ten on March 31st. A telling sign of tenuous moment the Pac-12 conference is in right now comes from who has spoken out loud and who hasn't. During these past few uncertain weeks, there have been public statements to local media by Washington State's President Kirk Schultz and Oregon State's President Jayati Murthy. Excuse me if I apologize if I mispronounced her name. Both should be commended for going on record during a time when information is mostly traded in secrecy and back channels. Cloak and dagger. Unfortunately, Washington State and Oregon State are the two league schools with the fewest options. So the strategy here is one based in hope. Perhaps most telling, and here's the money shot. Perhaps most telling, those schools with options haven't said much. The chances of schools with options not exploring different scenarios are about as the same as Seattle becoming a January beach resort destination. It's negligence if you don't, especially with so much uncertainty. The silence is deafening. The silence is deafening coming out of Washington and Oregon. Back to the article. Perhaps in Vegas this week, Kliavkoff would tell his schools exactly how he plans to pull off the kind of escape that would make Penn and Teller blush. That certainty is an option, as there are some in the league who believes things will be good enough for a bandaged deal that will kick the problems 60 months down the road. That goes on to talk about Arizona State Ray Anderson. We talked about this before. He believes that the television number will be solid enough to keep this conference together. But he did add that finances may not be the projections, projections originally contemplated. And then finally, with a high visibility week for the league coming up, it would be an opportune time for Kliavkoff to show his hand. Until then, it's best for the Pac-12 schools to trust no one. There was a lot there for Pete Thamel. This is it. This week is pivotal. If George Kliavkoff can't even present a comprehensive package deal, something to show the presidents, schools are bolting before the end of the month. Now, and I think Kliavkoff knows this, he's going to present something. And we're going to know there's going to be leaks. There's going to be leaks. I want to read the Arizona State Money Perch. I got to find it. I'm going to read you a letter this morning. This morning came at 10:08 a.m. Letter number 5. Again, we only went through letter number 1. We went through the whole thing. Letter 2 and 3, we didn't present to you. Letter 4, we just presented a couple sentences saying the numbers have to be there next week. The numbers need to be there, something like that. Here's this morning. This is from the Arizona State Money Perch. We will receive a preview of comprehensive media deals tomorrow or Wednesday. This won't be just projections per media outlet. This is it. This will go either one of two ways. If the numbers and structure of the deal show life, this will go on for another couple weeks, and we should get a deal done by the beginning of April. If what we are shown in the next couple of days doesn't meet our lowered expectations, you will undoubtedly begin to hear leaks from many different parties. Bad news equals leaks. Bad news equals continued communications outside of Pac-12 for more than half the conference. We are close to becoming the ESPN Plus conference. What we are hoping to see is ESPN visibility that uses their array of different channels at the very least. Amazon might take one game a week. We are not expecting to see an Apple TV offer this week. An offer that's comprehensive in nature, not a total package offer. I would be surprised. Maybe we see projections of Amazon and Apple TV both becoming Pac-12 partners. It would be difficult, probably impossible for Arizona State to stay in the conference with such a deal heavily reliant on streaming. Feeling confident Arizona schools are on the same page. Feeling good everyone understands this to be the case. 2 months ago, we were holding out hope we would see a media deal that would lift the conference towards the next media deal with some momentum. But losing the LA market and the media economics going through a recession, so to speak, has left the Pac-12 vulnerable. We don't believe Washington and Oregon have to be the first out the door anymore for the conference to collapse. Arizona schools together can be the first ones out if the deal looks bad. Arizona State, once again, won't move without Arizona. Big 12 knows they are limited in what they can do until we all see the numbers here in the next 24 to 48 hours. Leaks will happen quickly if George Kliavkoff can't bring in the structure or numbers. Leaks will be purposeful. Real action on chaos will happen right after conference basketball tournament, but the leaks will happen immediately. George Kliavkoff has no more times just to bring us projections. That's the letter. Coming from Arizona State Money Perch, letter number 5. And again, he's been nailed so far in this story and other stories throughout the years that he's been giving us. I want to show you one other thing. Couple more things Then we'll get to your comments. Then we'll get to your phone calls. I'm going to show you a clip from 365 Sports. The Athletics' Mitch Sherman says the Pac-12 could be regulated to mid-major status or worse in a matter of years. I want you to listen to this.
Happen, in your opinion? What eventually happens with the Pac-12?
Well, I mean, this is a fluid story. I mean, you asked me a week ago, I might have said something different than what I say right now, but my colleagues at The Athletic, I'm keeping up with Max Olson's content that he's putting out and other writers about Stuart Mandel. There's been news on this front with the Pac-12 potentially splintering. And I would say right here, right now, I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Big 12 is going to be a benefactor. Maybe the Big 10 is going to be a benefactor of the Pac-12 essentially breaking up if that's what ends up happening. I mean, the Pac-12 may be relegated to mid-major status before all that long, if there is a Pac-12 left in a couple of years. But right now, it seems like a feeding frenzy among the SEC, the Big 10, with the Big 12, hungry and knocking on the door for some of what those conferences have got. And obviously the Big 12 has new schools entering next year, Texas and Oklahoma leaving the year after that. But I don't think the Big 12 is going anywhere. A few years ago we had this conversation and everybody thought the Big 12 is the one that's going to end up going away. When Nebraska left the Big 12, part of the fear was, is there going to be a Big 12?
Yep.
Is there going to be a conference? Nebraska needed a conference. It's not Texas. It's not Notre Dame. They had to be able to go to a place just because they need that TV revenue. They need what a major conference can add. So you can't blame Nebraska for jumping for the security that the Big 10 offered. But here we are, more than a decade after Nebraska left, and I think the Big 12 is positioned to probably take some of what the Pac-12 is ready to give.
What's going to
Okay, so that was Mitch Sherman on The Athletic, talking about his other people that work at the Athletic reporting this Pac-12 saga. This is a pivotal week. This is it. The next couple days, George Kliavkoff has to present a deal. The moderator, Medea, first of all, I need to apologize to our web. I did not get to his donation of Saturday night. I apologize. Thank you so much for your generosity to our channel, our web. And I see that you did one again tonight, this evening. And I think our moderator might have accidentally deleted it. She was trying to point it out to me. So thank you, our web. Thank you for joining us always. Thank you for your generosity. And again, I apologize from last Saturday not getting to your donation. And again, it looks like we might have screwed up tonight. So thank you, our web. My apologies. I want to show you one more thing, and then we'll get to your comments. So I put this up 30 minutes before the show started. Agenda item details. The meeting is March 8, 2023. Special board meeting. Category 9 a.m. Wednesday, March 8, 2023. Call to order executive session. Subject, action item, executive session for Regents. Type, action. Resolved that the Board of Regents go into executive session as permitted by Section 246402. Colorado's revised statutes. The board would discuss the following matter as announced and pursuant to the subsection as listed below. Legal advice on a specific matter. Athletics update on the Pac-12. This might mean nothing, right? Might mean nothing. Or it could mean everything. As we said, peek around the corner. A lot of people are saying they're probably just going to discuss. People on Twitter and mentioned to me, this is probably just normal. Special board meeting. Maybe they use the word special a lot. They're just probably going to discuss the updated information coming from George Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 leadership. There's one problem with that, in my eyes. Look at the time, 9 a.m. Oh, that's Wednesday. That's Wednesday. So maybe that is. I thought that was Tuesday. I thought that was tomorrow. Okay, maybe this doesn't mean much. I thought this was tomorrow morning. My apologies. I thought this was tomorrow morning and that this information was coming out, this meeting was coming out before the numbers was going to come out Tuesday. Because we really believe that people are going to get the numbers on Tuesday, the Pac-12 presidents. So that doesn't have the meaning that I thought it did have. I thought that was Tuesday. But it's not. It's Wednesday. So that makes sense. Okay, let's get to your comments. And then we'll get to your phone calls as soon as we can. So many comments. Woo! D5 Terps, Colorado, going back to renew those rivalries. Hold on one second. Having trouble with the chat thing here. For those who have donated to the channel, I think I've lost your comments. So I do apologize. Let me know in the comments section who donated. I know our web has. I believe there's a couple other ones. I believe I've lost some comments here for whatever reason. So I do apologize. We'll get to what we can do here. Thamel is a solid source for realignment. He's more than a solid source. He is the source. Him and Brett McMurphy and a few others, absolutely. There's a lot of cloak and dagger going on. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to post this as a warning. Drink responsible. College football's peek around the corner. Official game rules. Drink whenever Greg says cloak and dagger. It only counts when Greg says it. Have fun. Drink responsibly. So if you've got coffee in your cup, if you've got tea, if you've got tequila, if you got beer, drink responsibly. The word cloak and dagger has already been used a bunch of times tonight. West Virginia guy, Pac-12, on Lifetime. I gotta say, again, we've talked about it, peek around the corner. The visibility issue of the Pac-12. You know, Brett McMurphy got a lot of heat when he talked about Ion being a possible media partner of the Pac-12. But consider this. If ESPN is just willing to do one game a week, 2 games a week, and Amazon's only doing 1 game a week, like ESPN might do a Saturday night game for Pac-12, right? Amazon might do a Friday night game. Where are you going to put all the other content for football? You're going to put it all on ESPN Plus? Kind of like what the Arizona State Money Perch guy said. We're going to become known as the ESPN Plus Conference. You're going to put it all on there. I mean, it's great access. Don't get me wrong. It's great access. It's better than the Pac-12 network access. But you're going to have top games going on ESPN Plus. Big games, if that's the case. If only one or 2 games go on ESPN every week and 1 game goes on Amazon. So you probably need that third media partner, linear. So who's it going to be? Once you start going down the list of who it's not going to be, what remains? right? It's not going to be CBS. It's not going to be NBC. It's not going to be Fox. It's not going to be Turner Sports. Could it be USA Network, NBC? Potentially that way. Probably not. CW, Ion, Apple TV. Once you start eliminating who we know it probably isn't going to be because of public reports, then you start getting into, well, who is it going to be? Yes, Medea says yes, thank you, R. Webb, and everyone for your donations. Apologize, R. Webb, once again. And I think I've lost some other comments on here. Ted fighting Illini. Ted, ESPN Plus with student announcers like BTN Plus does for Olympic sports. Yeah, I don't know. Monovision says who's left? Don't know. C-SPAN? Grateful Trojan, nice to see you back in the house. Appreciate it. What numbers? There's no offers. Again, none of the Pac-12 schools have really seen a comprehensive offer from George Kliavkoff, and they need to see it this week. They need to see it this week. We've been consistent here at Peek Around the Corner. We haven't thrown out numbers. There hasn't been any real offers set in front of them. And there's at least a couple schools that need to see them right now, this week. Because there has been talks, cloak and dagger talks, between those four corner schools and Pac-12. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. No matter what, it's been happening. I mean, these schools have to line up their ducks in a row. Colorado cannot just be sitting here going, geez, we got Deion Sanders. We signed him to a big contract. And remember when they did so, they didn't even know how they were going to pay for it. They want their boosters to be completely, fully invested in putting their money out for Colorado football for the first time in 25 years. And Colorado's going to be where on TV? Where are they going to be? So yes, they're interested. The money perch is talking. They're talking. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to our channel, because we could be popping up here noon tomorrow. In fact, I would give it a good 50% chance we're popping up at noon tomorrow. If you don't think things are going to leak out quickly, I mean, we got the leak January 31st, the day after the Pac-12 meetings, that Arizona State they said they voiced their displeasure to make it as kind as I possibly can make it. You saw what Ray Anderson said a couple weeks after we reported that. The leaks are going to happen. Thank you, Larry Pilgrim, for your donation. ESPN has 3 night spots. ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. They are lowballing. In no way are they get revenue close to Pac-12 with Mountain West and Big Sky. Thank you, Larry, once again for your generosity to our channel. But this is where the Arizona State money perch was talking. Hopefully, they can get some visibility on the array of ESPN channels. I mean, that's where they are at this point. Instead of doing this 80 to 90% streaming, they want to get on this ESPN. Larry's right. ESPN is lowballing. And there's steam out there, ladies and gentlemen. There is steam out there that there could be more layoffs. So, yeah. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Rick Olson, I can assure you that PK has seen any offers and Oregon won't make any move without his approval. Well, I can tell you, Phil Knight, I'm not sure anyone has seen a comprehensive offer because there really hasn't been one. There hasn't been one. They need clarity this week. They probably need it tomorrow. They need to see the numbers tomorrow. They need to know, are we going to be on linear, our football games, are we going to get 1 or 2 linear games a year? Right? All of our rest of our games are going to be on ESPN Plus. They need clarity this week. And then when they get the deal, when they get the offer, maybe a couple options, then they can work on hashing it out. But if it's really bad, you could possibly see something explode this week even. But if not this week, right after that basketball, March Madness is over. Opie, thank you, sir, for your donation of earlier. I think it was like $21 and something. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I lost the, I definitely lost the connection on comments before my time, 6:39. For whatever reason. So I apologize, but thanks for the donation. Appreciate it. Sean, thanks for coming into the room. The smoke is only getting thicker, Greg. At what point does PATC change their stance on Big Ten expanding with more Pac-12 schools? Well, let me tell you, Sean, we did change the odds in February 24th, that now the odds favor that Pac-12 gets poached. However, and we take everything seriously that Pete Thamel says. He says the expansion door has been cracked open. We've seen other reportings that the Oregon and Washington, they would settle in for a discount, all this stuff. We've seen it. But we ourselves have not been able to get that nugget of intel. We just haven't. And we've tried. So, we don't believe, we've never believed, we've always said USC does not have veto over Big Ten expansion of Oregon and Washington. That was all bunk. They have a vote. UCLA has a vote, but there wasn't, sometimes when the math changes, right, things change. Big Ten, Kevin Warren did not get the votes, did not build consensus. He was not a good communicator within the Big Ten. We saw that during the pandemic. We saw the distrustfulness of people money perched in the Big Ten towards Kevin Warren during the whole USC thing. That's why we were given so much information. We put it out there. We were tracked by the Big Ten during that whole 3 months period. Big Ten didn't want to get Houston chronicled, but yet the Big Ten boosters, the money perch, wanted Los Angeles to become a Big Ten city, and they didn't want Kevin Warren to blow it. It was cloak and dagger from day one. So we've been going, we've been talking, we've been poking around, but we haven't gotten anybody to tell us from the people that we talked to, from Oregon and Washington or any other, or the Big Ten money perch that we know, No one is saying anything to us. If we did get that intel, we would throw it out there. But we also did say during this whole time that it wasn't just Kevin Warren who wanted Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten. It wasn't just him. I know that became a popular myth out there, but it was just a myth. It wasn't accurate. So the math has changed. The Pac-12 money just isn't there to the point where maybe Oregon and Washington become the Big Ten will give another look and say, yes, we can do this. 6-7 year discount, Oregon and Washington coming in. And in 7 years, would they provide the value to the conference to be full invested members of the conference? Probably so. So maybe it happens now, or maybe it happens 2 years from now or 3 years from now. But if we said here, Sean, peek around the corner, when the Big Ten goes to 20 schools and probably to 24 in the next generation and in the 2030s, they're not going to be a 20-team league or a 24-team league with only 2 teams in the Pacific Coast. Just isn't going to happen. That's not going to be the composition of the conference. It just isn't. It just isn't going to happen that way. So, Oregon and Washington, all the way back at the episode 52, Oregon Money Perch, very frontal with us, said if we don't get in now, we're going to keep swinging away because we think we'll eventually get in. They have their reasons. Washington and Oregon have their reasons to be optimistic to become Big Ten members. And all those other schools in the Pac-12, they know it. Pete Thamel just put it out there in an article. They know it. They know it. They know the Big Ten's going to grow, and they know that they're not going to be, the total composition of the Big Ten is not going to be just 2 schools out in the Pacific Coast. So they're going to keep swinging away. And maybe it doesn't happen this month or next month. Could happen 2 years from now. Maybe the Big Ten waits to see that 2026 playoff format. The great gold rush we talk about here at Peek Around the Corner. The great gold rush, right? The playoffs could expand from 12 to 16. Automatic berths could drop from 6 to 4. We could be sitting here at 12 at-large berths in 2026. And all that will grease the skids for more consolidation, for more growth in the SEC and the Big Ten. And the Big 12. Right? Okay, let's get to your phone calls. Opie, I'm sorry, Opie. Thank you for your donation. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I do not know what happened to the comments section, but I can't get back to the past. But thank you so very much to everyone who donated early in the show. My apologies. Okay, let's get to your phone calls. Thank you, Larry, for your donation. Phil did not meet with the Big Ten representatives. He was not at the representative. So Phil Knight was not part of those meetings with Oregon and the Big Ten. That's all I can say on that. The phone number, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. The phone line's open. You can talk about anything. Look, we got the Iowa Hawkeye situation. I think I'm going to have an episode on that tomorrow. Racial discrimination. A settlement was made. I believe 12 football players was split around $4 million. Gary Barta, the Iowa athletic director, might be losing his job. We'll see. Sarkisian, Texas Longhorns head football coach, says there's going to be a battle between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. You better believe it. And I think Arch Manning's going to take over that spot. I am absolutely sold on Mr. Manning. That's why we have Texas winning the Big 12 championship in our way too early predictions, because Manning's going to become the quarterback of the Longhorns when the games start to matter, when the conference games start. Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers, look for it. Oregon State Beavers start their spring football practice tomorrow. DJ Ungo-Ungale, their new quarterback. What's going to happen there? Oregon State starts their practice tomorrow. You better believe it. Arch Manning, Bruce Harris, true freshman, going to take over that job. Larry M., from your mouth to God's ear about Barta. Barta opposed further Big Ten expansion. He wasn't the only one. Yes. Speaking of bad situations, Texas Tech athletic director has hired some bad coaches. They've got some issues there. Larry Pilgrim, Big Ten already said no to Oregon, and that was with the acceptance reduced rate in my statement. But how much reduced rate? All the way down to 30 million, 35 million a year for Oregon? That's my point. What was that reduced rate before when they were talking? That's the question. Oregon State. Oregon State is signing an exclusive media rights deal with OnlyFans. They're working on the slogan right now by Daniel Montecastle. Bo Nix, is he better than the Utah quarterback? Utah has won 2 Pac-12 championships in a row. Bo Nix had a good season last year, a great season. I was all against Bo Nix. I'm going to tell you, I didn't think he was going to do that last year. He was excellent. Who's the better NFL potential quarterback? Maybe Bo Nix. But give me Cameron Rising one more year for the Utah Utes. My phone line is down. Interesting. A lot of things seem to be down. Okay, hold on. Okay, try it again. Phone line back up. Hopefully. This show has never had this many people on it, so maybe that's what we're suffering through. All right, finally.
Call from
Wild Ute.
to accept.
Wild Ute is in the house. The floor is yours, sir.
How you doing, Greg?
Doing good. Wild night. Wild night for Wild Ute.
Yeah, it's a bit concerning right now what's going on in the landscape. Thought about this a lot. Talked to a lot of Utah fans about this.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of at least Utah fans would take a pretty reduced share just to keep in the Pac-12.
Okay.
And even if the Pac-12 survive, I mean, I'm kind of thinking through this. If Arizona would go to the Big 12, say that Arizona win over to the Big 12, I'm not really sure that really impacts the valuations for the conference that much at all. I'm not really sure really outside of the basketball component, really what Arizona brings to the Pac-12 is so valuable. I think ASU is a more valuable commodity, and they're in a redundant market. So losing Arizona...
You don't think those two would go together?
I sure hope not. Losing Colorado is a different story.
Okay.
You can lose Arizona and backfill that with even San Diego State and SMU, and you might even come out with more money. I'm serious about that. But if you lose Colorado in the Denver market, that one really stings. So I think that you try to hold on to Colorado no matter what. If Arizona's going, they're going. They've been wanting to go for many months. Their fans want to go. I mean, it just seems like they want to go so bad. If you just let them go and you retain everything else, I think that you're going to be okay. But as far as a Ute fan goes, I would rather take a lot less money and try to get on ESPN for a cheapo contract for 3 to 5 years rather than go to the Big 12. I just thought about this so much. Like the Utes moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, the grass will not be greener in the Big 12. There's just no way. For everything that's happened on the campus, you should see the campus compared to where it was before that Pac-12 invite came, Greg. I went to school at Utah from 2004 to 2008, and it was pretty much a dump on campus. And then once that Pac-12 invite happened, I went back to school in 2018, and it was a completely different world. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about a completely different world. It changed everything. And that's really what the Pac-12's done for the university. It's done so much and stuff. And I think the Utes have a lot of loyalty to the Pac-12 because of that. And even if Colorado and Arizona were to leave, I think that they would try to keep that intact for as long as it is. I mean, I just don't see the Utes bouncing over to the Big 12. I don't see that really benefiting the university academically over the next 20 years.
Okay.
It's a short-term play.
Yeah.
It's a short-term play. And I don't know what happens. Like, I think that you sign a 3 to 5 year deal, try to survive it, see what happens in the ACC, what kind of unrest happens. Maybe there's a large shakeup, and you can survive somehow. But I honestly would much rather try to hitch my wagons to the ACC and sign a 20-year gore and go over to the Big 12 as a Ute fan.
Well, maybe,
I think that Oregon and what?
Maybe that's I haven't been to. I don't really think that's an option, but for a few schools, for Oregon and Washington, going to the ACC is not an option. Really, it isn't. They would never do that. They're not going to sign that long-term gore. They're just not. I really believe they've heard too many positive things from the Big Ten to even consider that. However, maybe a Utah, California, Stanford, throw in another school, being a wing of the ACC, be willing to sign that long-term rights. If the whole thing's going to explode, right? If the four corners, right. If 3 of those or 2 of those 4 corner schools move to the Big 12, maybe that's an opportunity. Instead of rebuilding the Pac-12 with some Mountain West schools, maybe that's the way to go. But I understand your point. What you're saying is, let's get this 3 to 4, 5 year deal done. Let's survive this. And maybe some implosion happens in the ACC. Big Ten rears its eyes towards the Southeast. And now the Pac-12 has a chance to survive over the ACC. Am I reading your comments correct on that?
That's 100% correct.
Got it.
Plus, like the academics, these people hate to talk about that.
Yeah.
They hate it. And guess what? Utah's not Stanford. Everybody realizes that. But being aligned with Stanford has lifted the academics and the prestige of the university so much.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, ACC schools have great academics. North Carolina, Duke, come on. It's a different world than other schools in the Big 12. I know that BYU and TCU have some good academics, but the ACC are just it's more prestigious academically.
Yeah.
So I just see it being more on par or even a slight upgrade for the Utes in particular, for academics, for the campus, for the 20-year play rather than the short money play to go to the Big 12. We'll see what happens. It might not shake out like that.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
No, and thank you for sharing that perspective. And a lot of people share your perspective, right? I mean, the ties that bind the Pac-12 schools, even right now, what are we on, March 6th, is strong. They do not want to leave their peers, right? They don't want to leave their peer group. They just don't. And that's the reason why it hasn't imploded yet, to be quite honest with you. So I understand what you're saying.
That's going to be a huge wedge for CU. I don't think Arizona it doesn't matter to Arizona as much, but I think for CU, that's going to be a wedge. It's going to be hard to leave. I know there's a lot of smoke around that,
Yeah.
But I would honestly be surprised if CU actually makes the move, because you're talking about changing your recruiting too. I mean, you're recruiting territories from California, where your alumni base is in California for CU Boulder, and then
Yeah.
you're changing it back to going to Dallas and stuff. It's a huge move. I mean,
It
think
is.
about it competitively for Utah. One of our recruiting hotbeds is in California.
Yeah.
Like, if we were to leave for the Big 12, we don't have a California presence, we're going to have to reload and restructure everything with recruiting and rebuilding the whole football brand.
That's
So, like, we're talking like,
I agree with you. Yep. I would only say that's why if there's any implosion happening, I would still think that Big 12 would, at a very heavy discount rate, try to get a California school in with them, right? To make for Arizona, for Colorado, for whatever, to say that we're going to have a school we're going to have a football program in California, be it San Diego State, be it Fresno State. They come in at a discount rate. Very, very friendly rate to the Big 12 media partners and the Big 12 schools. So I'm still holding out. I think that's still a possibility if there is poaching happening. If the Big 12 can poach any Pac-12 schools, I still think those California schools are in play for the Big 12. I think they would attempt it at least.
definitely.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Greg. Appreciate it.
Fantastic phone call. Thank you, sir. Number is 763-260-1333. Phone number for PATC. Give a call. The floor is yours. Once you call, you can talk about anything college football.
Call from
Rebecca, go Huskies.
Rebecca is in the house. The floor is yours.
Oh, hi, Greg. How's your week going so far? Aside from
Doing
all the
great.
cat
We
issues?
broke down Pete Thamel's article. Pretty interesting. Some more smoke in regards to Washington in that article. Really, there is.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. They went silent. I don't know. Pete Thamel knows somebody in the president's so she's been very quiet about everything. I mean, she should be. She's directing the CEO group essentially, but man, they went quiet. So I was reading his article and I was like, man, who does he know at the University of Washington that hangs around the president all the time? Because she's very busy.
Yeah. Well, he's getting some smoke.
He's getting something, and he's probably getting it from the boosters. Because at this point, what I've been told by friends at the athletic department is boosters are starting to put the pressure on.
No question.
Not in the sports side,
No
but they
question.
also do their academic donations, and some of them are threatening to cut it off if this isn't good.
Rebecca, I apologize. I apologize taking your time. I just feel like I have to. You're absolutely right. This is all the replay of what happened in March of this spring. It just is. Yeah. It just is. If you go back, if for those who are new to the channel, we got so many new people coming in, watching this. Go back to episode 22 of our channel. Just go back there. How we broke down the breaking news that USC called the Big Ten. They tried to get into the Big Ten. We went through all the tweets. We went through how Big Ten tracked us. We went through it all. We went through all the reasons why USC Money Perch was talking. Same thing with what Rebecca is just saying. The Money Perch is just there. The phone lines are burning up right now. With NIL, with the boosters having to put money towards NIL big time collectives, they don't want to double dip. They don't want to triple dip. They want their athletic department to max out as much as they can with money and exposure. And right now, we are at March 6th. And as of this morning, we know, well, if you don't have to believe us, but we know that there hasn't been a comprehensive total media package presented to the presidents. The athletic directors are asking the presidents what's going on. They have no information. The boosters, like Rebecca just said, are calling the athletic director. The athletic director is telling the boosters, I don't know what's going on. And that's what's leading to all this cloak and dagger, to all this back channel talk. The vacuum is there. People are filling it up. I apologize, Rebecca. I had to go on a rant. Continue on your phone call.
No, you're everything you said. It's replaying like it did a year ago. I mean, no, it's legitimately, like, I tell people this all the time. The University of Washington has stupid money. Like, the boosters, like, we may not have an Uncle Phil, but we have enough people. We do have enough billionaires that are alumni that do donate tons of money. It's just a lot of stupid money amongst the alumni. So, I mean, there's like 4 NILs now, like collectives for the university, because people like are that into it. But I'm with Wild U. Like, if Arizona wants to go, okay, like, go. Like, you bring nothing but basketball. All right. Basketball's not the big moneymaker. I know the Big 12 is super hyped about being the best basketball conference, but I mean, what did that get the ACC over the years? I mean, they're in a gore until, I turn like 50. So, like, yeah, like, I mean, go for it. Like, that's, you don't, in the business world, Greg, you don't take a sidestep. You go big, or you go big or you don't. Big 12, it's just like moving sideways. It's not moving up. And I don't think there will be a Power 3 in 10 years. I think it'll be a Power 2. That's it. I don't think there will be a third. It'll just be a group of, just be a G5 school or G5 conference that just has schools with more money than the others. That's it. Like, that's where it's all heading. Like, there's no fantasy about that. There's no delusion about that. That's every athletic director and president in this country is seeing that. Once Oklahoma and Texas called the SEC, you knew the Big Ten was going to do something.
Yeah.
Somebody was going to react. Fox had to react and had to get, what's the next biggest thing they could do?
Yeah.
USC and UCLA. Now they have LA. But I also know that the LA schools will complain that island for a decade. They will do that.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Like, at some point, it can look like, yeah, they're making all that money, but at some point they're going to have their competitive disadvantage, like, show itself.
Yeah.
With all the travel. So, I'm just, like I said, as a Washington fan, I'm just kind of sitting back on this now because there's no point, like, getting worked up about it. But, again, if I personally think that if Arizona wants to go, I think it just gives the Pac-12 more money. Like, they're one of the schools dragging it down. Like, I got blocked by a reporter big in Arizona going to the Big 12, and I basically told him, like, you do know, like, just Washington State and Oregon State, but in Arizona. Like, that's what they are. They just have a better basketball program. So,
Okay.
that's all I want to say.
All right.
I'm just like, it's just all great. I mean, this week is, like you said, they're not physically there apparently, which is, I think, odd.
Yeah.
I do want to point that out. I think that's very odd that they're not actually all going to be there
Okay.
in Vegas in person.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't feel like – it feels odd, right?
It
I might be the
does.
only one thinking that.
It does. It does.
Like,
Okay, thanks.
they're going to
Rebecca.
get heated via Zoom, apparently.
Yeah,
Anyway, Greg, love the show. I've been listening. I haven't been commenting in the chat, but I've been listening all the time.
appreciate it.
Go Huskies. And as always, there will be no Big Ten expansion unless they get a commissioner, because they don't got a commissioner at this point. You guys are out with a commissioner.
Got it.
I'm putting George Kliakoff in the running for Big Ten commissioner. I'm putting that evil on you now. No, I'm just kidding. Bye, Greg.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Great call. Thank you. Jason says, hold on. Jason says smoke is billowing out of the windows, and Greg is still like, yeah, they're sticking together. That's not what we're saying.
Call from
Jerry.
Jerry, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Greg, what's going on? Hey, I wanted to run two scenarios by you, completely hypothetical.
Got it.
So, scenario number one, right, is there's a legislature in Washington that says that potentially could have both Washington and Washington State in the same conference. So let's say the Big Ten is serious on adding Washington, but due to that legislature, let's assume it gets passed, and that legislature now blocks the Big Ten from taking Washington because they have no interest in Washington State. What if the Big Ten then takes Oregon, Stanford, Cal, then Utah in place of Washington? And then scenario number two, what if Notre Dame becomes the savior for both the Pac and the ACC if Notre Dame comes in and convinces Florida State Clemson to stay and says, hey, let's go and merge with the Pac, and they call up Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and everybody else and say, hey, we're interested in merging, let's do this thing, and then maybe flip a few teams from the SEC and Big Ten, like let's say, like a Texas A&M or a Mizzou, a Nebraska, Wisconsin, right? Teams that have no business being in either conference, and then you kind of have a full coast-to-coast conference. What do you think about that?
Okay, scenario number one, I do not, that legislation is dead. So the legislation in Washington saying that Washington and Washington State are tied together at the hip, I'm not a believer in that in almost in any situation anywhere across the country. I didn't believe it with UCLA and University of California. Anyways, that legislation is dead. So Washington, if the opportunity presents itself, they're going to go to the Big Ten, and Washington State's not going to play a part in that. Scenario number two, if Notre Dame joins a conference, it's not going to be the ACC. It just isn't. It's going to be the SEC or the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is the big favorite in that. They're not going to be the savior for the ACC, and I am not big. For most of the scenarios that I've heard, I'm not a big believer in the people we've talked to about this Pac-12 ACC merger. Only if the Pac-12 implodes. Maybe there's some schools like a California, Stanford, where it makes sense. Maybe a Utah and some other school being a wing of the ACC, and they're willing to sign on to the 2036 grant of rights, because that's what they would have to do if they join the ACC. But Oregon and Washington are not doing that. I don't believe the Arizona schools are doing that. I do believe the Arizona schools are being undersold here in the chat room for their value. I think if Arizona and Arizona State leave, it's going to hurt the conference even more. But yeah, so to answer your question, both scenarios I don't see happening.
Cool. Yeah, no, I just wanted to run those two scenarios by you, because it's just kind of like everyone's talking in the chat, and I'm like, wait, here's a hypothetical that just popped in my mind, so I just wanted to call you and like you'd be like, hey, let's talk about this. And so, but I do see your point, I can see that legislation dying, or if not, it's already dead.
I think it already died. I think it already died.
Okay.
Someone correct me in the comments section if I'm wrong. I think that's already dead.
Okay, yeah, because I was trying to find something to see if if it was dead or not, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, is it dead or is it not? I wasn't able to find anything.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody from Washington in the comment section could correct us or let us know.
Yeah.
And then,
Mazda says
you know,
it's already died. Monavision says it died. So yeah, it's died.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Then that the scenario number one was never going to happen.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, but okay, sweet. Yeah, I don't have anything else for
Okay.
you, man. I love the show, and I'll be in the comment section.
Thanks for the great phone call. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, Monavision. Greg picked a pack to survive against the spread. The result, I think you guys got to pay attention more. All the way up to February 24th, the odds, the sportsbook odds, had Pac-12 surviving as the favorite, but not since February 24th.
Call from
Randy.
Randy, the floor's yours.
Hey, Greg, love the show.
Thank
First-time
you.
caller, go Penn State.
Go Penn
Look out
State.
for Penn
They're my
State.
pick. They're my pick to win the Big Ten this year.
As Coach Prime would say, we're coming. The
We're
beast
coming,
in the
baby.
East.
Singleton, look out. Go ahead. I'm
That's
sorry.
right. It's all right. Hey, Pac-12, you're in the clock, man. I've witnessed this in the Big East. I remember when Penn State went to the Big Ten. You guys better put your big boy pants on. And I tell you, Greg, if I was in the leadership of the Pac-12, you better call an emergency meeting. Get your heavyweights in the meeting and say, hey, I would go big. You got to go big. You got to go get Kansas State. You got to get UNLV. You got to have your Pac-12 championship in Vegas. Go pick up SMU, and you tell me that if you do that, that would not be attractive to your media rights partners.
What?
And it doesn't matter about UNLV. It's about markets now. No one has the Vegas market. If you pick up those four schools, you can't tell me Kansas State and Kansas want to jump to the Pac-12. You could probably get that done in a day.
They probably can't. First of all, they both signed their grant of rights for the Big 12, this new media contract. So I don't think the Big 12 schools are not available. Really, they're not.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a big mistake.
Yeah.
You can't sit back in this time. I remember when the Big East fell apart. You remember that, Chris?
Yep.
They let Penn State dangling out in the wind. They went to the Big Ten. You better do something big or you're not going to be there anymore.
Yep. No, you're right. And they had their chance to go big. They had many chances to go big. They should have took Oklahoma when Texas turned around on that deal and looks like they were going to join the Pac-12 13 years ago. But then they got the deal from ESPN, this Longhorn network, which was a travesty in so many ways. So Texas stayed on board in the Big 12. They still should have taken an Oklahoma State, a Kansas State, whatever. They should have gotten into the Central Time Zone. They should have gotten into more fertile recruiting grounds. They should have went big. Exactly what you're saying. 12, 13 years ago. And then in 2021, 2020, 2021, when the Big 12 suffered the loss of Oklahoma and Texas, they should have expanded then. But USC didn't want to do it because they were still evaluating what was going on in the landscape. And then they made the call sometime a little bit previous to March 31st of 2022. They made the call to the Big Ten. So in 2021, late 2021, the fall of 2021, USC stopped the potential Pac-12 expansion. But years before that, definitely, they should have expanded. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They should have went big.
And they still have to do something. I mean, you have to bring in Las Vegas.
I don't understand. Like, if you're looking at a media market, you have to go get Vegas, you have maybe Boise State, San Diego State, and SMU, and say, hey, we're going to have our Pac-12 championship in Vegas. It's still an attractive offer for a network. I don't see where you don't have that.
I brought this point up before. I thought that the Pac-12 would be able to swing something to where they'd bring on a couple schools, and then those schools would have major concessions to get into a Power 5 conference, that they would give their new playoff distribution money over to the Pac-12. As a Power 5 program, they're going to get paid big time in 2024, 2025 with the expanded playoff, with the new distribution model. They were going to get San Diego State, an SMU, a potentially UNLV, and another, let's say a Tulane, what have you. They were going to get this playoff money, Power 5 playoff money, and they can send that to the rest of the Pac-12 schools to make them whole again because they're adding slices. Yeah. And I thought that was going to be where the skids get greased for further expansion. But it sounds like the media companies, especially ESPN, do not want expansion. They're not willing to do it. They're not willing to do it. They don't want the tonnage. Amazon doesn't want the tonnage. Nobody wants all this extra content.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't see how that would not be attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pac-12, they still have value. They're
Yeah.
going to have their big Pac-12 championship game in Vegas every year. It's going to be a big show. You'll bring in the Texas market. You bring in the Vegas market. All of them, people don't understand. Pac-12 has 3 of the biggest markets that are growing.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
And they're just going to, if they don't do anything, Greg, they're going to fall apart just like the Big East.
Yeah.
Hey, go Penn State.
Go Penn
Love the
State.
show, Greg. Take care.
They're going to do it this year. All right. Great call. Tell ya, all this talk, message boards, Twitter about Big Ten scheduling, all their issues. I'm telling ya, they should have had this figured out already. They already built the process for all these disputes. Why haven't they gotten it done yet?
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas is in the house. The floor is yours, sir. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Greg. I feel like we need to kind of go over a little reminder of some market basics here.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems that the Pac-12 has is only 18% of the U.S. population resides in its footprint.
Okay.
And with all due respect to the last caller, they had the championship game in Vegas. That was great and fine, but it didn't really affect the ratings. It was still the lowest rated championship game of the P5. Also adding the fact that UNLV is a terrible program. Nobody watches, and it's not going to deliver fans in Vegas. The other thing I would mention is, I said, Burt Mangus said this, the head of ESPN, the person who's signing the check, the person who's paying the bills, has said that ESPN cares more about what? Matchups and rivalries and brands than they do about markets. And the whole market idea is the biggest BS that is the biggest BS line that I've ever heard, because what people don't understand is San Francisco, Seattle, and Los Angeles are all pro sport cities. Now, USC has a special advantage in LA because it has been there before the NFL ever got there, and it was sort of the main attraction for years, and that's sort of built in. That's the one exception. But for the most part, those cities, and if you even look at Denver, CU doesn't even do very well in Denver, but the issue is a lot of these growing cities that have large markets, these people who are moving in, they didn't go to school at these local schools. UW may be the exception, but at the same time, Portland's not a huge city. In San Francisco, most of the people there, they did not go to these schools. And it's just sort of a joke to think that if you're going to pick up a team in a local market, that entire local market's all of a sudden going to rally behind and join that team. We all know that's ridiculous. I mean, that's like saying TCU owns the entire Dallas-Fort Worth market, and that's not true because you have Texas and Oklahoma and A&M fans in there. And it comes down to the issue is fan bases. And, you know, people can talk about adding Colorado State, Tulane, or Rice, but the thing is they all have very small fan bases. And the alumni are small, and the history is not great, and they are not the predominant brands in those markets. Tulane is never going to ever outgrow or overshadow LSU in Louisiana and New Orleans. Never going to happen. Okay, Rice is never going to overshadow A&M and Texas, and Houston has the same problem. And SMU is never going to overshadow the presence of Oklahoma, specifically in Dallas. That's just not going to happen. So, you know, I know it's nice that they like to think they deliver the markets, but the question is who's watching it and who's watching those brands? And that's what the people who pay the bills care about. You know, if you have a huge national fan base, like I said, you look at schools like Nebraska and Oklahoma, they're in very, very tiny media markets in and of themselves. But their brand is national, and that's why they have the value they do. It's about eyeballs. So, and that's the problem, is that with the Pac-12, most of their games being late at night when people have gone to bed, there's just not the viewership there. And advertisers pay on eyeballs. I've said this a billion times. And this is the same problem over and over and over again. And, you know, if they think that their research spending, which I think, quite frankly, and I'll go on this rant again, research spending, they euphemistically call academics to make it sound like it's good for the students, but really it has no connection to the students. And I question the academic viability of some of those schools where you have TAs and PhD candidates teaching your kids and football players in 600-seat auditoriums. You know, yes, they've got great graduate programs, but let's not sit here and say that somehow, especially with football players who are taking communications classes and other degrees, and Stanford had a little scandal a few years ago with some of the classes their football players were taking. Let's not sit here and pretend like academics matter more for the players of the football team. That is the biggest snobbish excuse on the earth. And, all it is, like I said, I understand they want to be affiliated with like-minded people, but nothing stops them outside of what's painted on the field. I mean, the logo on the field does not have to change any of those relationships. And the final point is, my message is, I'm going to repeat what Mo and Vision said the other night. The Big Ten, you are in Pottery Barn country. You broke it. Now you got to buy it. You created the instability, and you know what? Yeah, you need to take Washington and Oregon at a discount. And if Notre Dame comes around later, then you can bring Stanford. But you got to get those two people on the island, and you just need to do this because you got to put Old Yeller down, because the Pac-12 is not going to agree on anything, and it's got problems. And the best thing that could happen is for the Pac-12, the Big Ten, to pick up Oregon and Washington and revisit Stanford later if Notre Dame comes aboard, and maybe, they could, 18 schools could work really well for basketball, and, that could also work for a scheduling model. But that, you broke it, you buy it, you got to fix it. And yeah, that may happen in April, but based on what I've heard and seen, it seems to me that I think the executive board and George Kliavkoff have seen various numbers, but there's a combination and a mixture that gets an ultimate offer that they'll put before the president. And I think that Kliavkoff has probably been stalling because he can't get a package or can't find a formula or a package that delivers the values he's been promising. And I think really this week is a matter of the president calling his bluff and saying, okay, you've had all this time, you've been stalling, you got to give us what's the best thing that we have here, put it on the table, show us now, because if you keep stalling, we're going to assume you have nothing and we're going to move on. And, that's basically what I think is happening there. And like you said, this week won't save the pack, but it could destroy the pack depending on what happens. And, for those of you on Notre Dame, I thought about this. Like I said, if NBC gets the NBA, do not be surprised if ESPN goes in contract with Notre Dame as an independent with all that extra money and a scheduling agreement with the ACC and SEC to keep that property out of the hands of the Big Ten and to increase the value of its SEC property.
There's a problem with that. There's a big problem with ESPN grabbing Notre Dame. They don't have the time slot for Notre Dame. They just don't have it. That's the problem.
But Greg, the problem is that same issue would happen if they joined the Big Ten, because NBC and CBS and Fox all are going to rotate slots throughout the day based on who's the better ranked teams.
Sure.
I mean that problem exists in the Big Ten, and
sure, but
that's
there's no afternoon NBC game right now. Like Notre Dame has that 1:30 Central Time Zone NBC. If they re-sign with NBC, they have that. But if they sign with ESPN can't offer them the afternoon game, can't offer them the evening game. ESPN really, I don't see Notre Dame and ESPN getting together on a deal, because I think Notre Dame would fear what window do we get on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, but if they're going to have that same variability in the Big Ten, and if these games are between SEC schools, Notre Dame versus an Alabama or Notre Dame versus a Georgia is going to get the prime TV slot, whether it's a home game for them or a road game. ESPN knows with the eyeballs, and if Notre Dame's having a tough year, then they'll be just slid over to ESPN for games, and that's how it is. But just don't be surprised if it happens, because I don't know if NBC gets the NBA. I don't see that independence still happening. Yeah. And the question is how much does Notre Dame value its independence? If it does, if it's hell bent on it, which it may or may not be, then yeah, I think the Big Ten can happen. But at the same time, you have to remember that there's another side of the equation here, and there is a battle, and I've said this many times. The SEC does not want the Big Ten to get a foothold or a foot or plant a flag anywhere in its territory. Having a Big Ten school anywhere in Florida or in Georgia or South Carolina, for that matter, is an existential threat to the SEC. Because if you give a big national conference on 3 different networks and its own conference network a flag in your territory, you give them a recruiting advantage that Ohio State and Michigan already have that, but all of a sudden you start giving that advantage and opportunity to Wisconsin and Indiana and Illinois and other schools. And the SEC does not want that to happen. And regardless of what happens with the ACC, whenever that happens, I just don't see ESPN standing by, and along with the SEC, I don't see them standing by and letting Notre Dame go to the Big Ten and increase that media revenue gap from $10 million a year to 15 or 20. I just don't see that happening, because that kind of money is going to make it even all the more enticing for Florida State and others to kind of get out of that grant of rights and pay whatever money they have to pay and just move on. And that's the thing that people have to realize. And we'll see what happens. But at this point, you know what?
Yep.
Big Ten, you're going to have, you know that you can't keep USC and UCLA on an island. You can't do it. You're going to have to bring in 2 West Coast teams. Just get it over with and do it now. You can probably get them at a discount now and just do it and get it over with, because you know what? As Mo and Vision said, you went into the Pottery Barn store, you broke the pot, you got to buy it.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thanks for the call. All right, phone number 763-260-1333. Yeah. NBC and the Big Ten are already in bed. Adam Vulture, even if the Pac-12 survives, they lost their credibility with USC and UCLA gone and Washington, Oregon with one foot out the door. Not worth the risk to overpay. The markets do mean something. I've seen some comments from that last caller, but the markets do mean something to the Big Ten. Those media companies, they want those markets to buy products and services that their advertisers advertise.
Larry Pilgrim.
Larry Pilgrim, thank you so much for your generosity this evening. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Greg. I want to pick your brain, a topic that I haven't seen anywhere, and maybe you would know. So USC and UCLA announced their departure 2 years before, and I guess Oklahoma and Texas did it as well. As far as I know, there's no exit fees because the grant of rights will be up, and they gave their 2-year notice. How would that play into, say, the Four Corners leaving, or Oregon or Washington? Would they have to give 2 years as well, because the grant of rights is going to end, but it also states you have to give 2 years notice? So I haven't heard any discussion on that, and I don't know if you would know anything about that.
That is a great question. Fantastic question.
Because in my opinion, if you think about it, if say there's, cloak and dagger going on, and there's schools talking to each other, is it anything like the ACC? If 4 more schools leave, that's half the conference, and does that grant of rights go away? The same with the ACC. So, is that a cloak and dagger situation that maybe's going on as well?
Well, the grant of rights, I didn't get that last part. The grant of rights in the ACC doesn't go away if some teams leave. The grant of rights...
If half the league.
What?
If half the league. If half the league.
Oh, if half the league... I don't really even think... The grant of rights for the Pac-12... And the Pac-12 is weird because the new media rights, whatever media rights deal the Pac-12 signs, their current media deal ends July 1st, 2024. And normally, the grant of rights go with the media deal, like the same dates. But for whatever reason, if you read the Pac-12 bylaws, the grant of rights doesn't end until August 1st of 2024. I don't know why that is. Why there's a month. Doesn't make any sense to me. But what the point is, the Pac-12 grant of rights is going to end relatively soon. Do you know what I'm saying? So it isn't like an ACC situation. There's no schools that are going to be leaving for the 2023 season, 2024. So if Oregon and Washington, if there was an announcement that they were leaving to the Big Ten for the 2024 season, would there be any added penalty to Washington and Oregon because they did not give the 2-year notice or whatever, 18-month notice or whatever it is, like UCLA and USC did? Is that pretty much the question you're asking?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I don't know the answer, and I don't know if there was a penalty. You know, I don't think it's a hurdle that anyone wouldn't just bowl over. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
If there would have to be, or else why would USC and UCLA announce exactly, 2 years prior?
Yeah,
because,
well,
if it was tied together and you could, get out without an exit fee, they wouldn't have had to announce. They could have held on to that a little longer, I guess. But
that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'm going to look into it. And who knows? That might be the cloak and dagger motivation.
Right. And I mean, if there's an exit, say there is. I mean, we don't know. But say there's just, whatever, you'll have to pay if you give 2 years, say they have to pay 1 year media deal, whatever, it's 22, 25, 30 million. Could that, and that's why I'm saying, but if half of the conference disbands, would there be a penalty? So I don't know. It's something I thought of, and I'm like, I haven't heard anything about exit, but I know that there's a 2 year, you have to announce 2 years. So it's like, is it a 2 year you have to announce just to exit the conference regardless of media deal? So anyway, that's all I just wanted to bring that up.
Great question. I don't have the answer. I understand what you're saying, but I just don't have the answer.
Okay. Well, at least I could stump you first.
Thank you, sir. Great call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, the market. Okay, so the Big Ten and the SEC are different in. Daniel says the media companies sell ads in media hubs. ESPN might love rivalries, but they aren't selling them in Anderson, Georgia, or Anderson, Indiana. They're selling ads in Indianapolis, New York, LA, Philly. The markets do matter in the Big Ten. They really do, and they matter all over the place. It's one of those components you have to add into it. I understand how much your university, how big a brand it is in your market, is it your fan base, all that plays into it. But the media markets still play into it. Big Ten they have national advertisers that advertise during their live sporting events. That's what brings them all the money in. Big Ten can average less eyeballs than the SEC, which they regularly do, except for 2 years ago, they're basically the same. Regularly, Big Ten draws a little bit of eyeballs, but they bring in more money for the advertisers because the demographics in those Big Ten markets, the buying power in those Big Ten metropolitan areas, they buy the products and services that the national advertisers advertise to them during the live sporting games. SEC is a more regional. Of course, they have national advertising, but it's more regional. But it's more potent because they have more eyeballs. So they both get there by different ways and means. Media markets do matter, though, to the Big Ten. Now, there are some places that are more pro demographics in those media markets, Minneapolis being one of them, Minnesota. Out of the 14 Big Ten current schools, I would say Minnesota is the 9th or 10th most valuable school in the Big Ten. Maybe some would say 11, right? Even though they have the 17th biggest market in the country, Twin Cities metropolitan area, they're a goofy university because they bring in a different, they're big in hockey. They bring in a different bandwidth to the Big Ten. Plus, they're one of the original six Big Ten schools. They've been in every major decision. But they don't quite bring the value that other universities do in the Big Ten because they're a pro-city, pro-state, professional sports state. Just like Northern California. Just like a lot of other places in the Pac-12. Minnesota carries the same characteristics. Although Minnesota loves their Olympic sports, they go to them to buy tickets, wrestling, hockey, on that kind of stuff. But when it comes to basketball or football, they're battling that pro element in their state. But media markets do matter to the Big Ten. That national advertising. Fox wanted the LA market. They wanted the complete LA market, and they wanted UCLA with USC. Thank you, Tony, for the super chat. I appreciate your donation. Mr. Gopher in the chat room, I appreciate it. No, Tony. Minnesota Golden Gopher basketball team is not winning the Big Ten tournament. And yes, someday, the Minnesota Golden Gophers baseball team will win a baseball game. I think they're 0-11? 0-12? Okay, Tony, reading the Big Ten TV deal with Fox, 24 to 32 games a year. Big Noon, 14 weeks. FS1, 14 weeks. That's 28 games. My question, is there any reason FS1 could not broadcast their games in the fourth window? You know what? I suppose there isn't, except for Fox Sports doesn't want to spend any more money on this Big Ten TV deal. I really think Fox, you know what Fox Sports would love to do? They would, I think they would be okay with an Amazon coming in with big money, right? To bring in an Oregon and Washington, because then Fox Sports could sell Big Ten network subscriptions that they own 61% of in the state of Washington and Oregon, and they believe that those two fan bases would gobble it up. They would buy the Big Ten network. So the Big Ten, they get the cow, they get the milk for free. They don't have to buy the cow. Amazon buys the cow, right? In that situation. But I really don't think Fox Sports wants, they're not willing to pay out the tier 1, tier 2 money for more Big Ten sports. Fox is doing other stuff. They're doing others. They're going to go for other stuff in the sports world. So they've pulled back. I do not think they're willing to pay the price for the tier 1, tier 2. Again, if someone else bellies up to the bar and the Big Ten presidents rally around two candidates, Fox Sports gets to sell the Big Ten network in the state of Washington and Oregon. You know, I think Fox Sports can be convinced to do it, but I don't think they're going to pay for the fourth window. I think Fox is out. I think Fox is out on Pac-12. I think Fox is out on a lot of things in college football. They're getting ready to pay some big money for the playoff games coming up in 2024, 2025, but I think they're done. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out soon enough. Peter Johnson, marching orders, Greg. Big Ten Network would sell really good in Salt Lake City. I don't doubt that at all. I think it would as well. Our web, that if any member does deliver a notice of withdrawal prior to August 1st, 2024, in violation of this chapter, the conference shall be entitled to an injunction and other equitable relief to prevent such a breach, and if court competent jurisdiction shall deny the conference. I don't understand a word of that, but again, the Pac-12, but thank you, our web. for putting that up there. And again, thank you, R. Webb, for your donation of last Saturday, which I failed to say thank you to you. I apologize, but thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, the grant of rights is going to end real soon. Whoever's going to leave the Pac-12 is. If Washington and Oregon go to the Big Ten, it's going to be after the gore ends, and maybe they have to pay some sort of penalty because of the withdrawal notice, but it won't be that big. And
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis has called. The floor is yours, sir. What's going on?
Well, this was a good evening. Well, Pete Thamel, that article was one of the best articles that's been written in the whole saga of this, which is hopefully coming to an end.
Yes.
And the reason is because of my perspective, having followed the Big East, and it took a blow in 2003, and it got bludgeoned in 2011, and finally it was put to death in 2012 as a conference. Slowly, boom, 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 and it died. And for two things. First, the Thamel article had a lot of quotes from Mike Tranghese, who was involved. Now, he was not involved at the end. There was a gentleman named Marinato who presided over the conference dying. But Tranghese, at the time, started a lot of the issues when in 2003 he gave an article with Hoops Weiss of the New York Daily News complaining about a lack of loyalty in the Big East. And shortly after that, Miami and Virginia Tech left for the ACC. You had that whole drama. And that, to me, when you have an article being written with Mike Tranghese being referenced, that's not what you want to hear if you're the Pac-12, because the more I think about it, there are just a lot of similarities between what's going on now, what happened to the Big East over time. Now, maybe it won't happen this year. Maybe they'll bandage together like the Big East did after their initial losses, but inevitably the Pac-12's dead. Washington and Oregon are going to be gone, and that conference is going to go under. It may not happen for 10 years, but it's going to happen because Washington and Oregon are too valuable to stay there. And so now it comes down to, will they do a Band-Aid approach or will they break up? The 3-year Band-Aid approach that's been floated, that to me is just kicking the can down the road. But it's quite possible, because of the academic connections between these schools, that the presidents will decide, even though they know that Washington and Oregon are gone, they might decide to go for the 3-year Band-Aid and stay together. But that's all I think it's coming down to. But when you look at the Thamel article, the Tranghese quotes to me were very instructive, and you can't believe what anybody is saying. And the other thing I'll say about Thamel, because some in the Pac-12 were critical of Thamel, Thamel was the very first person in 2011 when he was writing for the New York Times to hint that West Virginia would be picked over Louisville for the Big 12. Mm-hmm. So the guy knows what he's talking about. Yeah. He's not just he has a tremendous amount of credibility as a journalist that goes back 15 years. So people taking shots at it, when I read that, he's credible. It's not some homer. It's not someone speculative. He really knows there's something going on. With that said, I still would be shocked to see the breakup happen. The only way it could happen is if, as been floated, it's been floated around. I don't know if I believe it, but one of the things that's been floated is Yormark is a basketball guy. Yeah. And he was with the New York Nets, East Coast basketball. That he sees a vision in the future, not now, but in the future of the Big 12 being a basketball super conference going pretty much coast to coast. Yes. Gonzaga, perhaps some schools in the East, the old, and if that happens, then Arizona could be drawn to that, and Colorado might be drawn to it because they have a coach that doesn't want to play on streaming. Yeah. But we'll see. I'd put it at 50-50, but the Thamel article was very good, and I am happy to hear that hopefully we'll have some idea in the next 48 hours what's happening. Either bad leaks will come out and the conference is doomed, or maybe they will stick together and sign some kind of Band-Aid approach like the Big East did in 2003. Yeah. We'll see. But the Thamel article was a very well-written article, had a lot of good content, and I think he left open a lot of possibilities, but we will see what the powers that be at some of these universities in the Pac-12 decide. I hope they choose wisely. And that we get this over with. But if they're staying in the Pac-12, they just got to realize, look at the Big East. There's no way that conference is existing with Washington and Oregon 10 years from now. And if they're comfortable with that, that's the decision they have to make.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Beautiful. Beautiful call. Thank you, sir. Beautiful call. Beautiful call. Pete Thamel. People are taking shots at him. I don't understand it. This whole, again, we have Peek Around the Corner. We don't get involved in this Pac-12, Big 12 media throwing elbows at each other. I do get comments from both sides. I get it. I don't like the disrespect that are being thrown both ways, but none of that matters. I don't care. I do not care who is paid to do what on message boards or on Twitter, because I think it has so very little effect. You know how many times I've been accused of being paid from the Big Ten over the years, or other people, over and over and over again, and it's all completely bunk. And I think 99% of it is bunk. And if for the 1% that's true, it's not going to matter. The only thing that matters is the media companies and George Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 presidents. And can he present the numbers and the structure to where he can thread the needle to keep the conference going for another 4 to 5 years. That's it. The rest of this, attacking Pete Thamel, it's garbage and it does no effect.
Call from
Moen.
Mr. Buckeye. What's going on? The floor is yours.
All right, Greg, I just want to clarify something. The Pottery Barn rule was in regards to would the presidents feel sorry that they broke the pack and possibly add Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. I don't necessarily believe that that's what's going to happen. There has been smoke here in Columbus recently. I mentioned it to you today on Twitter regarding Washington and Oregon. I still don't know that Gene Smith is on board with it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there have to be assurances for some of these smaller schools.
Yeah.
As well as some of the larger schools. But, you know, Ohio State does try to look out for some of the smaller institutions, especially like Indiana and Purdue and some of our, you know, the original conference members, Northwestern as well. And I know Michigan kind of takes that stewardship approach as well, as has Minnesota and Wisconsin. So I don't know that we're going to add anybody unless there's assurances that those people are going to be taken care of. Yeah. By taking care of, I mean unless there's assurances that they're going to still have – we don't want to have an A league and a B league essentially within the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the three the three really good OTA spots are just dominated by these brands with no access for the Northwesterns and Illinois and Iowa of the world to proceed forward. But I wanted to put something else out there for you, Greg. We haven't heard a lot on the PAC regarding uneven revenue distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think maybe Oregon and Washington are putting out some of these rumors to try and force uneven revenue distribution, and maybe you're getting some of the four corner schools to kind of flirt a little bit with the Big 12 to try and hold their own and say we're not going to put up with it?
I don't, you know, it's just a theory. I'm probably wrong, but to me, I don't even think you get to the unequal revenue sharing portion of the discussions until you bleep and figure out what the deal is, right? I mean, I honestly, from everyone we've talked to, I honestly think that, and we've said this over and over again, the Pac-12 presidents, they just want to see a bleeping comprehensive media package in front of them. Once they do that, they can hash it out for the next couple weeks. Part of hashing it out could be the unequal revenue portion of it, right? It very well could be. But I don't even think they've been able to talk about that because unlike the ACC where they know what the revenue pie is, right? They don't even know that in the Pac-12 right now. So that could be a part of the hashing out. It probably will be.
Sure, but wouldn't the media companies' deals be contingent on a grant of rights? I mean, they're obviously not going to make a decent money offer unless Oregon and Washington are held throughout the length of the contract. So, I mean, they have to be negotiating, at least in good faith, that, you know, let's say ESPN is saying we're going to give you $30 million, but that's based on Oregon and Washington 5 years.
Yeah. I'm not even really sure at this point. I think the money is so low. I think they're undercutting Pac-12 so much. I think ESPN is lowballing the Pac-12 to the point where I'm not even sure if ESPN, I think everybody at this point knows that Oregon and Washington aren't going to sign anything that keeps them in the conference permanently without any exit hatch more than 5 years. And it could be even more than 3 years at this point. And I think that's one of the problems. George Kliavkoff hasn't put forward a deal yet. So I don't know if that answers your question. It probably doesn't, but
it's up in the air. But like I said, it's a catch-22. If Oregon and Washington say we're not signing a long-term grant of rights, the PAC as a conference isn't getting that deal.
Yeah.
So does the PAC as a conference say, does Oregon State, Washington State say, okay, we'll take less to make sure that Oregon and Washington sign this deal? And, you know, and then you've got, I mean, it seems too odd to me that you've got all these leaks coming out. The Four Corners are leaving, Oregon and Washington, you know, Coward leaking that Oregon and Washington are under the microscope again at a 50% share. I don't know. It's up in the air, but I'm just wanting to throw that out there as another possibility.
Yeah.
That, you know, there could be disinformation going around to try and a little bit of a power struggle to get what everybody wants, which at the end, I think you're right. I don't think anybody's going to get what they want. Ideally, I do think that Arizona and Colorado will be the first to go, and then Oregon and Washington will end up taking a 50% or less share in the Big Ten.
And if it holds together, threading the needle, probably, if George Kliavkoff can thread the needle, get all 10 schools on board, it probably has to do with a very, very short Band-Aid deal that is so short that Oregon and Washington will say, okay, we'll sign the grant of rights because this thing is so short, right? Less than 5 years, maybe a 4-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal. Maybe that's how the needle gets thread. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I always go back to episode 52 because that was way, way back. And we had an Oregon big time money perch saying we're not signing no traditional grant of rights that has any teeth in it because we think that now this was prior to the no-go for launch when it was when we all figured it out in October during that decision window that the Big Ten wasn't going to go further expansion, that it was a no-go at this time. This episode 52 was previous to that decision. And that Oregon guy said that if we don't get in this time, we're going to keep swinging and we're going to make sure we can get in there to where we're not going to sign that traditional grant of rights that has large teeth to it to where we can get out. So to me, see, for me, this whole time, I sense, and you can kind of see it in the reporting of some reporters, I don't want to say their names, but you can kind of see that Oregon and Washington, when they had these preliminary meetings with the Big Ten, Oregon had the meeting in the city of Chicago. Washington had the meeting in the city of New York with the Big Ten, that they received enough information back, enough of a wink and a nod back to say to themselves, yeah, if we don't get in now, we're going to definitely make sure we leave our exit ramps short, clear, and inexpensive to jump into the Big Ten when we're able to. So I keep going back to that because I've actually read the back and forth conversations, so I'm heavily biased. I don't think if this deal gets done, I don't think Oregon and Washington they're going to make sure they can get out. I'm not sure how. Maybe it's such a short deal that's not even an issue. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would just leave you with one more thing, Greg.
Got it.
I see a lot of people, and you mentioned it earlier, bringing up the easier path to the college football playoff in the Pac.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, that's only set for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2026, these rules could all change.
Yeah.
And believe me, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be primed to get rid of AQs.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want as many slots for Big Ten teams and SEC teams as they can get, and they will join together to get rid of that AQ. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Throwing that out there, that's only guaranteed for 2 years. So, I'll let you go, Greg.
Thank you.
Great show.
Fantastic call. John doesn't believe that Oregon and Washington have a pathway to the Big Ten. I'm calling Oregon and Washington's bluff. If Oregon and Washington got a Big Ten invite, they should already be gone. However, the math might have changed, John. The math might have changed. Because Oregon and Washington might have to come in at even a steeper discount. John, again, Oregon and Washington have no Big Ten invite for the next 7 years. John Coy, Big 12 will be the third power conference. We might be going to a power, we're already in a power 2 conference, but I don't think it's just going to be 2 conferences, 24 teams each, and that's it at the highest level of college football. I don't believe that. Maybe I'm being naive. I do think there's going to be a third conference. I think there's going to be a fourth conference. You want to call them mid-majors? That's fine. But there's going to be a Big 12. There's going to be probably an ACC. That's what I believe. I don't think now there's going to be a revenue gap. There's going to be an opportunity gap. All that stuff, just like we have in basketball, just like we have everywhere, right? We have the Yankees and the Kansas City Royals, that gap. It's just going to be like in college football. I don't think we're just going to go to an SEC Big Ten universe. However, I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe it does happen. Maybe SEC just goes alone, creates its own galaxy. Big Ten creates its own galaxy. I don't think so. I hope not. I really do. I hope not. I'm completely against all of that stuff. I want there to be more opportunities for more universities, for more student athletes to at least have a pathway to compete at the highest level. That's why I love this 12-team playoff. I love the auto berths. I love the top 6 ranked conference champions getting a berth. But I understand what Mona Vision just said. There's no way SEC and the Big Ten that bring the most eyeballs, they're going to want to benefit from it. Consolidation, we've talked about this all before. We can see it coming. But it doesn't mean I have to like it or agree with it. Again, the phone line is 763-260-1333. We're talking We went through the article. If you've missed it, if you just join us, we went through the whole Pete Thamel article on ESPN Plus. Don't trust anyone. The latest on the Pac-12 decision. We've got to see numbers this week, probably tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Wednesday. The Pac-12 presidents will get some numbers. They're not meeting. It's not an in-person board meeting in Vegas, but they're going to get updated. George Kliavkoff have to deliver the numbers. League members are longing for financial clarity. It's all going to come to a head in the next few weeks, an industry source said. This week is viewed as a pivotal one. I'm saying to you, tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be the most pivotal days because that's when the numbers are going to show. The Pac-12 presidents are going to see them. According to sources, there have been at least minimal contact between Big 12 and the Four Corners schools. The contacts have emerged to varying degrees and via various methods depending on the school. Can the Pac-12 figure out a short-term tourniquet contract? Short-term. Will Oregon and Washington agree to a traditional grant of rights that come with it? The lack of permanence in the Pac-12 comes from the fact that Oregon and Washington have national championship aspirations.
Call from
Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters.
Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. Curtis is in the house. What do you got to say? Oh, we lost Curtis. We lost Curtis. Please call again, Curtis. Ludwig von Menger says Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona, San Diego State to the Big 12 is most likely. Laura Weiss, nice to see you, Laura, in the house. Texas Tech, rumors in the Big 12 countries. Your Mark wants to separate basketball from football, have separate TV package. Years down the line, that's what Your Mark is saying. We'll see what happens there. Cornelius Green, I like to watch Josh Pate, who hosts Late Kick Live. Gene Smith from Son of Sarek. Gene Smith, we know you're shadow watching. Sign in and chime in. That's a great, you know what? Washington and Oregon, who are they talking to in the Big Ten? Who are they talking to? Who are they discussing it with? Is it Gene Smith? Who is the temporary Big Ten commissioner? Or is Kevin Warren actually still communicating? Is he still involved? He was at the women's Big Ten basketball tournament. Who would be talking with Oregon and Washington right now? Who would be representing the Big Ten? That's a question out for the chat room. Going back to the Pete Thamel article. Whoops, I skipped over.
Call from
Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters.
Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. Curtis, you in the house. What do you got to say?
Hey. Oh, how you doing, Greg? Glad you all had a good time.
Yes, we had a great time.
Hey, just want to say that in the negotiations, they had everything worked out for ND coming in for Notre Dame.
Yes.
And they still have everything worked out, because if Notre Dame was to say tomorrow that they're coming to the Big Ten, what are they going to do? The TV networks are going to come up with all kinds of money.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now regarding Washington and Oregon, if the Pac-12 just goes away, something is going to happen. In what way? We don't have a clue, but there's no way the Big Ten is going to allow them to go off to the SEC or to the Big 12, because they bring too many eyeballs, and the eyeballs they bring have dollars behind them, and that's what the Big Ten's going for.
Yeah.
So, but if they do come, it's going to be at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
And they're going to be happy with it, because it'll be more than what they've ever gotten in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let you talk, man. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Curtis. Thank you for the phone call. Thank you so much. Rebecca asked a good question. Let's say Washington, Oregon have been in constant communication with the Big Ten. What are they being told? And really, what could they be told, honestly? Who's speaking to them? All great questions. I don't know. We haven't... it's frustrating, but we can't tell you something that's not there. We at Peek Around the Corner have not picked up a nugget of intel. We got a whole bunch of it. June 30th, when it was announced that USC and UCLA were joining the Big Ten, we said right away, Washington, Oregon, Notre Dame, Stanford, these were the main targets for the Big Ten. Bam. And that people in the Big Ten and Kevin Warren did not want just to bring in UCLA and USC. Bam. All that was correct. We had it right away. We had money purse people talking left and right. And it's been silent. We can't get any information. In regards to Oregon and Washington talking to Big Ten, we can't. When Pete Thamel said the door was cracked open on Big Ten expansion, we were just like, let's go. Let's find something. We haven't found anything. So I wish I knew that. I wish I even had a guess to that question, Rebecca. And I don't. Maybe tomorrow we will. So if you're new to our channel here at Peek Around the Corner, subscribe to our channel, because we can pop up at any time. You'll get notified. We'll pop up at the weirdest hours. So you need to be subscribed to our channel and smash that like button if you like our content. It helps us with the algorithms of YouTube so very, very much. So, and share the video with your family and friends. Well, I appreciate you all coming here. Again, this is our biggest show ever. Every show is our biggest show ever. We're a very young channel, even though I've been around for years at Twitter at Flug Empire. If you go to my Flug Empire Twitter, you'll read about a story that was written about us at Los Angeles Times. I appreciate you all coming in, discussing this. We'll go a little bit more longer here. Gordon Gee. Yeah, for Ohio State president, don't think so. Previous, he was. Big Ten ice hockey. It's about time Big Ten wins. It's about time the Gophers. We need to get this national championship. The Minnesota Golden Gophers ranked #1 in the country, but Penn State, Michigan, they're all right behind us. Yeah, for the Big Ten, If the Big Ten is going to expand, they're going to need Gene Smith on board. And he was a pretty hard no last time. But again, the math has changed. Let's be honest. The math has changed. Is it enough to get Oregon and Washington in the boat at this time? I can tell you this. The scheduling issues, it'd be a lot easier to schedule these permanent rivals if there was an 18-team league with Oregon and Washington in the conference. SEC has basically figured it out with their 16 teams, 3 permanent rivals. We've seen it over and over again on Twitter. Brian Kelly came out, the LSU coach, and said Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama, I don't remember, are permanent rivals. These schools know who their permanent rivals are going to be going forward. Big Ten doesn't have a clue, and I think it has to do with the fact they're not quite sure what their composition is going to be for 2024. But my goodness, it's a lot easier. Put your pen to paper. It's a lot easier to figure out Big Ten future football scheduling with 18 teams, 4 teams out in the Pacific Coast, 10 conference games, 3 permanent rivals, 7 rotation. It works beautifully. It works beautifully. So we shall see. We're gonna end it tonight. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 36 minutes. A whole lot of people. Thank you for the donations. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're going to be popping in here. Tomorrow. I believe the Pac-12 presidents are going to see some numbers. Real numbers in a comprehensive way. Comprehensive package sitting in front of them. The leaks are going to fly. We're going to be working. We're going to be working our people. Hopefully we'll have some nuggets of information. And if we do, we're coming on live. We might go on live at 11 in the morning tomorrow, Central Time. Maybe noon. So subscribe to our channel. This is a big week. We're going to talk about other things in college football. We're sprucing up. We're getting ready for the spring football games. We're going to be doing live watch parties. ACC. They've already scheduled their spring. I think they're like middle of April 15th, all their games. We're going to be doing a couple of ACC games. We're going to be doing a lot of them because we love it. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you need a little bit of extra content to get you through the days, get you through the night, subscribe to our channel. Thank you all so much for coming on board. Pretty soon, we're going to be showing you our new PATC Cloak and Dagger mugs. They're going to be on sale, hopefully in the next couple months. So we'll have that for you. So when we do our Cloak and Dagger, when you do your drinking responsibly with your coffee, with your tea, with your milk, with your Diet Coke, with your tequila, with your vodka, with your beer, drinking responsibly, you'll have the mug in front of you as you watch PATC live shows. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to be coming on soon, probably tomorrow, possibly during the day. So until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.